Every extraordinary life begins in a place that looks completely ordinary. Most people believe their future changes because of one big decision. The truth is much quieter than that. Every day begins almost exactly the same. The same habits, the same routines, the same expectations. Nothing about this morning feels important. That's exactly why most people never remember it. Extraordinary lives rarely announce themselves in advance. They quietly hide inside ordinary mornings. Across the world, millions of people are beginning another day, believing today will somehow be different from yesterday. Most of them don't realize they're slowly becoming the people their routines are creating. Every journey begins by stepping outside. The destination, however, is decided long before anyone notices. At this moment, there is nothing separating one future from another. Everything still looks exactly the same. Every lane is filled with people chasing a better future, while following the exact same road they drove yesterday. Work begins. Conversations repeat. Deadlines return. Another ordinary day quietly unfolds. Most lives aren't changed by dramatic events. They're shaped by what happens during completely forgettable days. Hours pass one after another. Nothing feels extraordinary. That's exactly how ordinary lives quietly become permanent. Everyone around him is working toward a future they hope will be better. Few ever stop to question how that future is actually built. The evening arrives just as predictably as the morning. Another day completed. Another day quietly added to a lifetime. This is where most people believe the day is over. In reality, the most important part is only beginning. Every future is built one evening at a time. The difference between two lives can begin with a decision that lasts less than an hour. Tonight looks exactly like every other night. The only thing that isn't ordinary is the choice that's about to be made. Every evening gives us something incredibly valuable that most people never notice: an extra hour. The future often depends on what we decide to do with it. At this exact moment, someone else is making a different decision. It doesn't look important today, but time has a remarkable way of rewarding consistency. Comfort is easy because it asks nothing from us. It offers instant satisfaction while quietly borrowing time from the future. Learning rarely feels exciting at first. Most valuable skills begin with confusion, mistakes, and the uncomfortable feeling of not knowing enough. There is nothing wrong with relaxing after work. Problems begin when relaxation quietly becomes the most productive part of every evening. Every page of notes may seem insignificant today, but small improvements have a habit of becoming extraordinary when repeated long enough. Life should absolutely be enjoyed. The challenge is making sure enjoyment doesn't quietly replace progress every single evening. Every book contains years of someone else's experience. A few focused hours can save years of unnecessary mistakes. Entertainment isn't the problem. The problem is believing tomorrow will always provide another chance to begin. While the world slows down after work, a small number of people quietly continue investing in themselves. Years later, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. A few minutes here, and they never feel expensive. That's why most people never realize how much of their lives disappear one scroll at a time. Walking into a room where everyone knows more than you can be uncomfortable. It's also where the fastest growth usually begins. Escaping reality always feels easier than improving it. The difficulty is that reality is still waiting when the game is over. Successful people rarely possess secret information. They simply spend more time searching for knowledge than searching for distractions. Another evening comes to an end. It feels completely ordinary, yet ordinary evenings are quietly becoming an ordinary life. Tonight changed almost nothing that anyone could see. But the smallest daily decisions often create the biggest differences that everyone notices years later. The first few weeks don't look impressive. There are no visible rewards, no congratulations, and no signs that anything is changing. On the other side of the city, another evening begins exactly the same way it always has. Comfortable routines have a way of making time disappear unnoticed. Progress rarely feels dramatic. Most days, it feels like repeating the same small task without knowing whether it's making any difference. Life continues as usual. Weekends arrive, stores fill with people, and another opportunity quietly passes without anyone realizing it. Every page teaches something new. None of it feels life-changing today, but knowledge compounds long before success becomes visible. Family dinners, conversations, and ordinary evenings continue exactly as they always have. From the outside, both lives still appear completely identical. Improvement is almost impossible to notice while it's happening. That's why most people stop long before the results finally appear. Weeks quietly become months. Nothing extraordinary has happened yet, but the direction of both lives is already beginning to separate. Instead of letting every spare moment disappear, he quietly fills small pockets of time with knowledge. Those minutes seem insignificant now, but they will eventually become an advantage. There's nothing unusual about this weekend. Friends meet, stories are shared, and everyone assumes life will always provide another chance to start tomorrow. Skills aren't developed by watching others succeed. They are built through countless imperfect attempts that nobody else ever sees. Seasons continue to change. Festivals come and go, creating wonderful memories, while time quietly keeps moving in only one direction. Another month has passed. The daily routine still feels ordinary, yet every repeated evening is slowly shaping a completely different future. Birthdays, office parties, promotions, and celebrations fill the calendar. Life feels busy enough that it's easy to mistake movement for progress. One notebook becomes two, then three. None of them represent instant success, but together they tell the story of consistency that few people are willing to live. Months have passed, yet from the outside they still look almost identical. The biggest changes are happening where no one can see them, inside their habits, mindset, and daily choices. Skills don't just change what you know. They slowly change how you think. Curiosity replaces hesitation, and questions begin replacing assumptions. Comfort often teaches us to wait, for motivation, for confidence, or for the perfect opportunity. Unfortunately, those moments rarely arrive on their own. The more he learns, the more he realizes how much there is still to discover. Growth creates humility before it creates success. It's easy to believe the world is unfair when everyone around you is repeating the same frustrations every single day. Instead of accepting what he already knows, he develops a habit of searching for better answers. That habit quietly becomes one of his greatest strengths. Every room filled with experienced people reminds him of one important truth. The fastest way to grow is to stay close to those already moving forward. Watching successful people can feel inspiring, but inspiration without action slowly becomes another form of entertainment. New skills naturally introduce him to new people. Conversations become opportunities because they are built around learning instead of complaining. One meaningful conversation can shorten years of trial and error. The right advice often arrives only after you've shown you're willing to do the work. Small moments continue disappearing into distractions. Individually, they seem harmless, but together they slowly shape an entire lifestyle. Being surrounded by ambitious people quietly changes what feels normal. Bigger goals no longer seem impossible. They begin to feel expected. Every lesson adds another piece to a puzzle he cannot fully see yet. Progress is becoming visible in his thinking long before it appears in his bank account. Deep down, he still wants something more. But wanting a better life and building one are separated by thousands of repeated decisions. Confidence no longer comes from hoping everything will work out. It comes from knowing he can continue learning, adapting, and solving whatever comes next. The greatest transformation hasn't happened in their careers yet. It has happened in their identities. One is waiting for life to improve, while the other has become the kind of person who improves life. After months of learning, something finally changes. Knowledge begins leaving the notebook and entering the real world, where it can create opportunities. Success stories are inspiring to watch, but they can quietly become a substitute for building a story of your own. The first projects are rarely perfect. Their real purpose isn't to impress people. It's to prove that ideas can become reality through consistent effort. It's easy to admire people taking risks while convincing yourself you'll begin once you feel completely ready. Feedback isn't always comfortable, but every suggestion makes the work stronger. Improvement accelerates when pride steps aside. Eventually, there comes a moment when preparation must meet courage. The only way to discover what's possible is to put your work in front of the world. While one version of Nick is creating opportunities, the other is still waiting for one to appear. The difference remains almost invisible. The first conversation feels intimidating. Yet every professional relationship begins with a simple introduction and the willingness to show up. Life continues comfortably, making it difficult to notice that someone else is quietly building momentum during the very same evenings. It's not a life-changing amount of money. What makes it valuable is the proof that his skills now have real value beyond the classroom. Opportunities rarely arrive through luck alone. More often, they appear through people who recognize preparation when they see it. Watching others move ahead can feel frustrating, especially when we don't see the years of preparation behind their success. Every event introduces new ideas, industries, and people. His world is becoming larger because his curiosity continues expanding beyond his daily routine. Delivering the first project brings something more valuable than payment. It builds confidence that the next opportunity can also be earned. The evenings still feel relaxing and familiar. But comfort has quietly become a routine that asks for nothing while giving very little in return. The reward may be small, but the lesson is enormous. A single skill has produced a real opportunity, proving that consistent evenings can eventually change an entire life. Months have quietly turned into years. What once felt like practice has now become real work, and opportunities are arriving faster than he imagined. His salary has increased too. It feels like progress, but every raise is quickly matched by rising expenses and a lifestyle that quietly expands with it. Confidence no longer comes from hoping people believe in him. It comes from knowing his skills can solve problems that businesses are willing to pay for. Instead of spending every extra dollar on comfort, he reinvests it into tools that make him even more valuable. Growth continues feeding more growth. The higher income feels good for a moment, but rent, subscriptions, loans, and everyday expenses quietly absorb almost every additional dollar. For the first time, work takes him beyond his own city. Skills have created something money alone never could: the freedom to go where opportunities exist. These trips aren't vacations. They're proof that the evenings he invested years ago are now opening doors in places he once only dreamed of visiting. Conversations have changed. They are no longer about escaping work, but about creating ideas, solving bigger problems, and building something meaningful together. His routine still looks almost identical to what it was years ago. The days pass quickly, but very little about his future is moving in a different direction. Success isn't about working from beautiful places. It's about building skills that allow you to choose where, when, and how you want to work. Work is no longer something he constantly chases. Every completed project quietly creates trust, and trust begins attracting the next opportunity. Despite earning more than ever before, financial freedom still feels distant. Higher income means very little when every increase disappears into higher spending. The city hasn't changed, but the way he moves through it has. Skills have transformed uncertainty into quiet confidence built on real experience. Business relationships often begin as simple conversations. The more value he creates, the more those conversations naturally become long-term partnerships. Every purchase brings a brief moment of excitement. Yet lasting satisfaction remains just out of reach because consumption can never replace meaningful progress. Opportunities now exist in different cities, not because he searched harder, but because years of preparation made him someone worth inviting. Skills open doors, but collaboration multiplies their value. Working alongside talented people accelerates growth in ways no course ever could. Financial pressure hasn't disappeared. It has simply grown alongside his lifestyle, leaving him working harder without feeling significantly more secure. The greatest reward isn't the travel itself. It's knowing that his career is no longer limited by a single office, employer, or city. Years ago, both versions of Nick had the same evenings, the same job, and the same potential. Today, the difference isn't talent. It's the compound effect of thousands of ordinary decisions repeated long enough to completely reshape a life. Something unexpected begins to happen. Instead of constantly searching for opportunities slowly begin searching for the person who has prepared for them. Meanwhile, the other path still depends on waiting. Waiting for a better job, a better manager, or the right opportunity to finally appear. Every conversation creates another connection. Every connection increases the chance that someone will remember his name when the next opportunity appears. Travel no longer interrupts his work. It expands it. His office has quietly become anywhere with a laptop and an internet connection. One introduction leads to another. Soon, every project begins opening doors to industries and people he never expected to meet. Watching successful people can create the comforting illusion of progress. But borrowed motivation disappears quickly when it isn't followed by action. Repeat clients are more than additional income. They are proof that trust has become one of his most valuable professional assets. The biggest opportunities rarely begin inside meeting rooms. They often begin during simple conversations between people who respect each other's work. He's working hard too. The difference is that his future still depends on convincing someone to give him an opportunity instead of creating one himself. Expertise has a strange effect. The more value you consistently create, the more people begin inviting you to share what you've learned. Every event expands his perspective. New technologies, new ideas, and new relationships continue multiplying the value of the skills he started building years ago. Sometimes he wonders why life hasn't changed more. What he doesn't see is that change usually arrives long after the habits that create it. Years ago, he was learning in silence after work. Today, organizations are trusting him to help solve problems that matter. Networks aren't built by collecting business cards. They're built by consistently becoming someone people are confident recommending to others. The world hasn't suddenly become full of opportunities. He's simply developed the skills that allow him to recognize and capture the ones that were always there. One version of Nick is now choosing between opportunities. The other is still hoping for one. The distance between them was never created in a single day. It was built one evening at a time. 5 years have passed. The evenings that once looked insignificant have quietly become a completely different way of living, working, and seeing the world. The other version of Nick still follows the same weekday routine. Nothing is necessarily wrong with his life, but very little has fundamentally changed. Freedom isn't measured by expensive hotels or beautiful views. It's measured by having the ability to choose how you spend your mornings. His calendar is still filled with meetings planned by someone else. His schedule continues to belong more to his employer than to himself. Years of consistently delivering value have transformed small freelance projects into long-term professional partnerships built on trust and reputation. Every evening still follows a familiar pattern. Routine isn't the enemy, but repeating the same routine eventually produces the same future. Success has given him something far more valuable than a higher income. It has given him control over where his work fits into his life. The evenings still provide comfort, just as they always did. The difference is that comfort quietly became the destination instead of the reward. Wealth isn't simply about earning more money. It's about reaching a point where your time no longer feels permanently borrowed from someone else. Both men worked hard. Both sacrificed time. The difference is that one spent years building assets that created freedom, while the other continued exchanging time for the same predictable routine. Years ago, travel felt like an expensive dream. Today, it has become a natural part of a life built on skills that create value anywhere. His responsibilities have grown, but so have the demands on his time. More experience has brought more work, not necessarily more freedom. The greatest advantage isn't earning more. It's deciding which projects deserve your time and having the confidence to decline the rest. Every month feels familiar. Income arrives, expenses follow, and another cycle quietly repeats itself before the next paycheck appears. Freedom creates moments that money alone cannot buy. The ability to pause, breathe, and experience life without constantly watching the clock. The airport has become less of a destination and more of a workplace. His career now moves with him instead of keeping him in one place. Occasionally, he wonders how life might have looked if he had started sooner. The hardest part isn't failure. It's imagining the opportunities that never had a chance to exist. The people around him have changed as well. Conversations now revolve around creating value, solving bigger problems, and building the future together. His evenings still feel relaxing, just as they did years ago. The only difference is that those evenings have quietly become the blueprint of his entire life. 5 years ago, they shared the same apartment, the same job, and the same potential. Today, they live in two completely different worlds, not because one was smarter, but because one invested thousands of ordinary evenings while the other simply let them pass. No economy grows forever. Even the strongest companies eventually face difficult seasons, and when they do, ordinary routines can change overnight. For years, one paycheck supported his entire life. Now, with a single conversation lasting only a few minutes, that source of security suddenly disappears. The same economic slowdown reaches his clients too. But unlike before, his experience isn't tied to one employer, one office, or one source of income. The expenses haven't disappeared just because the salary has. Rent, groceries, insurance, and everyday responsibilities continue arriving exactly on schedule. Years of consistently creating value have built something invisible but incredibly powerful. Relationships that continue opening doors even during uncertain times. Savings can delay financial pressure, but without valuable skills generating new opportunities, every withdrawal quietly brings the next difficult decision closer. For the first time, he isn't worried about whether he'll survive the crisis. His greatest concern is making sure the people he loves feel secure as well. When thousands of people possess similar experience, finding another opportunity becomes far more difficult. Competition increases precisely when confidence begins to disappear. Crises reveal the true value of preparation. The evenings he invested years ago have quietly become a safety net that no economic downturn can easily take away. Life has a way of stacking challenges together. Job loss, family responsibilities, and unexpected emergencies rarely arrive one at a time. His life isn't free from hardship. The difference is that financial stability allows him to focus on helping his family instead of worrying about how he'll pay tomorrow's bills. Financial stress affects more than a bank account. It slowly steals peace of mind, confidence, and the ability to think clearly about the future. Skills don't stop creating value just because life becomes difficult. The ability to solve problems remains valuable no matter where you are or what you're facing. He's working harder than ever to recover. The difficult reality is that rebuilding becomes much slower when preparation begins only after the crisis has already arrived. Years of consistency have created something more reliable than a single paycheck. Multiple relationships and multiple income sources now protect him from depending on one employer. The crisis didn't create his vulnerability. It simply revealed it. Years of postponing growth left him with very few options when stability suddenly disappeared. Skills cannot prevent every crisis, but they can change how you experience one. What began as a few hours of learning each evening has quietly become the strongest form of financial security either version of Nick could ever have built. 5 years ago, he was quietly learning after work while nobody noticed. Today, people gather to hear the lessons earned through those ordinary evenings. Life has stabilized again. He found another job, but the routine remains remarkably familiar, leaving the same dream postponed for another day. The greatest reward isn't recognition. It's realizing that your experience has become valuable enough to help someone else change their own future. His work no longer asks where he lives. Instead, he chooses where he wants to go, and his career simply travels with him. He still dreams about visiting new places someday. The dream remains alive, but it continues waiting for the perfect time that never quite arrives. Freedom isn't about escaping work. It's about reaching a point where work fits around your life instead of your life revolving around work. Success has given him something many people spend their entire lives chasing: the ability to decide when enough work has been done for the day. The journey comes full circle. The knowledge he once searched for is now the knowledge he freely shares, proving that the greatest investments continue creating value long after they are made. People are no longer interested in what he hopes to achieve. They're interested in what he's already learned and how those lessons can help someone else succeed. He still believes life will eventually improve. But without changing today's habits, tomorrow quietly keeps becoming another version of yesterday. Success didn't remove responsibility from his life. It simply gave him the freedom to decide where he would carry those responsibilities each day. Years ago, he searched for mentors wherever he could find them. Today, he has quietly become the mentor someone else was searching for. He isn't unhappy. He's simply living with the quiet feeling that life could have been different if he had started sooner. The world feels smaller now, not because it changed, but because years of learning removed the limits that once kept every opportunity far away. Wealth has become more than money. It's the ability to end the workday knowing tomorrow's opportunities aren't controlled by someone else's decisions. Both versions of Nick worked for years. One built a life centered around choice, while the other continued living by obligation. The greatest reward of learning skills was never wealth. It was the freedom to decide how life would be lived. For years, their lives seemed to move farther apart. Yet, both journeys began in the exact same place, with the exact same person making one small decision. One wasn't born more talented. One wasn't given better opportunities. The only real difference was what each version repeatedly chose to do after work. The distance between these two lives was never measured in miles. It was measured in thousands of ordinary evenings that quietly shaped completely different futures. Every decision seemed too small to matter on its own. Yet together, those tiny choices became habits, and those habits eventually became an identity. Looking back, there was never a single dramatic turning point. There were only ordinary days repeated often enough to completely change the direction of a life. Success and regret rarely arrive all at once. They grow quietly in the background while life appears perfectly normal on the surface. Only now does the truth become clear. You were never watching two different people. You were watching two different collections of repeated decisions. Every future begins with the person you choose to become today. The question was never which Nick would exist. The question has always been which habits would quietly build his life. The story ends exactly where it began. One ordinary evening, one ordinary person, and one ordinary decision that will quietly shape everything that follows. Most people spend their lives waiting for a life-changing opportunity. They rarely realize that opportunity often arrives disguised as a completely normal evening. Every future remains invisible while it's being created. The choices that matter most are usually the ones that seem too small to matter at all. Somewhere beyond these lights, thousands of people are finishing work. Some are unknowingly building the life they dream about. Others are unknowingly postponing it once again. Tonight, there is only one question left. After work, which version of Nick will you become?